Level 1. Trust Fund Baby. The delivery room overlooks the Hollywood sign, and a studio publicist is drafting the announcement before the cord is even cut. By 4 hours old, 3 trade outlets have run the headline. A crane has entered the world. Your father, Lionel Crane, turned 2 sound stages and a bank loan into a name that opens doors here the way other names open umbrellas automatically, without a thought. At 3 days old, you're handed a brass clapperboard engraved with your initials, a gift from your godfather, Marcus Yates, a 2-time Oscar winner who calls you the future of this business before you can hold your own head up. Your mother keeps it on the nursery shelf like a family crest. Nobody questions what a newborn is supposed to do with it. That's the point. It isn't for you yet. It's a promise made on your behalf. Before you can read, you've sat through 4 premieres in a christening gown, passed hand to hand between men who will one day greenlight your entire adult life with a single phone call. Family legend says your first word is cut. Nobody corrects the story, because it's better than whatever you actually said. At 7, you're an extra in your father's war epic One Unbilled Shot, a boy sprinting through a market square, and the crew applauds when you nail it in a single take. 40 people spent the morning making sure that take would work. You think it's because you're good, and you'll keep thinking some version of that for the next 17 years. Latimer Prep runs $58,000 a year, and half your classmates share your world, if not your last name. Children of agents, financiers, 2 former presidents. A C in algebra becomes, on your report card, still finding his rhythm. You get away with things that get other kids suspended, and the explanation is never spoken, which is somehow worse than if it were. Your father has one line he repeats at every ribbon cutting, every premiere red carpet, half joke and half instruction. A crane doesn't wait in line. You laugh the first dozen times you hear it. You won't understand, for another 20 years, that it was never a joke at all. Level 2. Legacy Kid. College acceptance letters aren't really letters so much as formalities. USC's cinema school has a building with your grandfather's name over the door and a screening theater your father funded with a $4 million check the same spring you apply. You get in. You tell yourself it's the personal essay. You skip lectures the way other students skip parties, because the professors already know whose family signs part of the department's budget, and a missed midterm quietly becomes a makeup opportunity nobody else gets offered. Your roommate, Devin Ruiz, works the box office for $11 an hour and reads scripts on his lunch break, pencil in his teeth. He notices how professors treat you and never brings it up, because Devin decided early to like you and not the noise around you, a harder thing than it sounds, and one you won't appreciate until much later. Sophomore year, you intern for a line producer on your father's film, technically unpaid, actually cushioned by a $2,000 weekly allowance that lands in your account like weather. You fetch coffee for people twice your age who've spent a decade earning the right to be exhausted, and they call you sir without irony. And for a while that feels like proof of something you haven't done yet. You make a 9-minute short for a class, budget quietly covered by your father's assistant, edited by a professional, consulting for free. And it wins a slot 600 other submissions didn't get. The trades call you a filmmaker to watch. Nobody in that sentence has watched you make a decision alone. Devin submits a short that same year, shot on borrowed gear for $600, and doesn't get so much as a rejection email. Festivals that size don't send those. At your graduation party, by the pool at your parents' house, he shrugs it off and says he's happy for you, and means it. You don't ask what that costs him. It doesn't occur to you yet that generosity has a price, or that Devin's been paying yours for 4 years. Level 3. Industry Darling. Your father calls you into his office on a Thursday and slides a script across the desk like a birthday present. $38 million. Your name goes above the title director, 26, youngest in the studio's history. The trade headline exists before you've said yes, written on the assumption that you would. You cast a movie star for the lead because he owes your father a favor from 2009. And tell yourself the casting is instinct, not inheritance. You override the cinematographer's shot list twice in the first week because you believe you know what a good shot looks like. Nobody on the crew corrects you out loud. Correcting you costs people their next job, and the silence around your decisions gets mistaken, by you, for consensus. Editing runs 4 months over schedule. Reshoots $6 million. Approved without a real argument. Patch holes better planning would have avoided. A first assistant director named Priya Wallace pulls you aside at wrap on day 41 and says, carefully, that the third act doesn't track. You thank her for the note and change nothing, because changing it would mean admitting the first 40 days weren't working. Test screenings score a 41 out of 100, a number that gets photocopied and passed around the lot before you even see it. A studio memo, leaked within a week, calls the film unsalvageable at this budget. You read it in a hallway you've walked 1,000 times, and for the first time, a room in this building doesn't feel like it belongs to you. You call your father that night expecting the version of him who fixes things with a phone call. Instead, he tells you, in the tone he uses for board meetings, that he can't be seen protecting the film without it looking like exactly what it is. You hang up understanding, for the first time, that the safety net was never meant to catch the fall, only to make it look graceful. Level 4. Box office disaster. Windfall opens on 3,400 screens and closes in 11 days, a $9 million weekend against $61 million spent once marketing is counted. The reviews are brutal, in a specific way. Not just bad movie, but bad movie made by a man who never had to be good at anything before this. One outlet's headline, Crane's empty windfall proves the emperor never had clothes. A press junket clip goes viral for the wrong reason. A reporter asks a basic question about lens choice, and you fumble it on camera, visibly, for 6 unbearable seconds, long enough that you hear your publicist shift her weight beside you. The clip is captioned, "The Nepo baby who's never actually worked a day," and crosses 4 million views by morning. Crew you never bothered to learn the names of give anonymous quotes about the overrides, the missed calls, the favor cast lead who phoned in every scene. Priya's name isn't among them. You notice, and don't know what to do with noticing. Your father issues a statement through the studio, careful and cold. Creative decisions on Windfall were made independently. The word sits in your chest like a stone dropped down a well too deep to hear land. 2 projects you'd been attached to quietly recast the director role within the week. Your name, once a green light, is now a line insurers won't back. The family lawyer calls not your father, a distinction you register instantly. Your trust disbursement, tied to a reputational conduct clause nobody explained to you at 21, is suspended pending review. Your leased Range Rover lapses within 30 days. The bank calls it a voluntary surrender. It doesn't feel voluntary. You check your balance in the driveway of the Bel Air house that was never actually yours on paper, $6,214. It has never once occurred to you to know that number before this moment. A moving crew arrives the following week not to help you pack, but because your mother's already redecorating the guest house and someone from the estate office texts you a deadline like a delivery window. Level 5. Blacklisted. The extended stay off the 101 runs $79 a night, the kind of place with a vending machine instead of a lobby. You tell yourself it's temporary, the way you've never once had to tell yourself anything. You call 11 names. 9 don't pick up. 2 text back some version of "so sorry, swamped right now," which you learn, fast, is industry for goodbye. You sell the watch the Cartier your godfather gave you at 16, the one that sat on your wrist like it was keeping score for $1,900, to a pawn shop on Highland that doesn't recognize your name and has no reason to care. It's the first transaction of your life where nobody is doing you a favor, and that's almost a relief, right up until it becomes something closer to fear. You apply for a production assistant job under your real name and hear nothing. 2 weeks later, you apply for the identical job under your mother's maiden name, Pharaoh. Every real credit stripped off and get a callback in 6 hours. You sit with that in the motel parking lot, turning it over, not liking what it tells you and unable to argue with it. Devin lets you sleep on his couch for 11 nights before his lease makes that impossible, and doesn't ask one question about Windfall the whole time, the kindest thing anyone's done for you all year. On the last night, he says, "You never once needed the name with me. Maybe try finding out who you are without it," and goes to bed before you can answer. You take a job wrapping cable for $150 a day on a non-union shoot in Van Nuys. 16-hour calls, nobody knowing or caring who your father is. On day 3, a gaffer named Gus Alvarez watches you coil a cable wrong for the 4th time and says, not unkindly, "Whoever taught you nothing on purpose." You go back and coil it right, and doing it right, alone, with no one watching to praise you, feels different from every take you ever got in one on your father's sets. Your feet blister through shoes never built for 16 hours on concrete, and you tape them the way you've watched other crew members do it, quietly, without asking. Because asking marks you as new in a way you're desperate to stop being. You don't dream about windfall once that month, which surprises you more than anything else does. Level 6. Hired hand. Gus has rigged lights on other people's movies for 31 years and never once had his name above a title. He takes you into a kind of gruff, unofficial custody, correcting your raps, showing you how a set runs from the ground floor, the floor you'd always been carried 3 feet above. He has one line he repeats like scripture, and it takes 11 tellings before it lands. Learn the job nobody photographs you doing. You understand it at 4 in the morning, standing in mud, holding a C-stand steady against the wind so a shot you'll never get credit for doesn't fall apart. Nobody points a camera at your hands. You hold the stand anyway. A producer named Nadia Ose is shooting a $340,000 independent feature 2 lots over, chronically understaffed, and Gus vouches for you not by name, just as Sam, which you've started answering to faster than your own name. Nadia has no idea who you used to be. She hires Sam Farrow as second AD for $600 a week because Sam shows up at 5 sharp and never says, "I know a better way to shoot this." Week 6, the first AD quits over a pay dispute, and Nadia hands you the position out of necessity, not faith. You run the call sheet the way Gus taught you every department accounted for. No shortcuts, and the shoot wraps 2 days under schedule. The first time that's happened on one of her sets. She doesn't throw a party. She just starts calling you first for the next job, which is worth more than a party. You text Devin that night for the first time in months. 3 words. "It's working, man." He sends back a single thumbs up. No lecture, no "I told you so." And that restraint says more about the friendship than a paragraph ever could have. Level 7. Breakout Director. 2 years pass under the name Sam Farrow. You AD 4 more micro-budget features. Learn to build a schedule that survives real weather and real actors, and start putting $40 from every paycheck into an envelope you just call the account. Because you don't need a slogan to know what it's for. Nadia's 5th film, budgeted at $900,000, loses its director 11 days before principal photography. She's desperate, the insurance bond at risk, and she looks across a folding table at the person who's quietly kept her last 4 sets on schedule and asks whether Sam Farrow has ever wanted to direct. You could tell her who you actually are. The Crane name could close the gap in an afternoon. You don't. You say yes, as Sam. You shoot it in 19 days, 12 setups a day, no reshoots, because for the first time, every choice on that set is one you've earned the standing to make. You write 5 words on the production office whiteboard every morning. Name gets you the room. Work keeps you in it. Nobody on the crew asks what it means. You're not writing it for them. The film premieres under the name Sam Farrow. The trade review, 3 sentences, unglamorous, entirely true, calls it a small, disciplined debut from a director clearly raised on set floors, not boardrooms. You read that line 4 times in a parking lot. The same kind where, 2 years earlier, a different version of you sold a watch for less than it was worth. Distribution offers come in at $1.1 million. And every dollar traces back to something you built with your own hands. Gus comes to the premiere in a rented suit that doesn't quite fit him and stands at the back the entire screening because the seats make him restless. Afterward, he shakes your hand once, hard, and says, "Coiled that cable right in the end. And it means more to you than every review combined." Level 8. A-list director. The reveal happens on its own. An old classmate spots you at the after-party and posts about it before you've decided how you want the story told. For 2 days, the headlines write themselves again, but the sentence underneath has changed. The Nepo baby who vanished for 2 years and came back as somebody's crew guy, then somebody's first AD, then, finally, a director whose work stands up without a family name propping it up. Your father calls for the first time in 14 months. You let it ring twice before answering, not out of cruelty, just to prove you still can. The conversation is short, careful on both sides, and ends with him saying, quietly, that he watched the film twice. You don't need the compliment the way you once would have, and that's how you know something actually changed. You still introduce yourself as Sam on set, out of habit more than hiding now. You still keep $150 cable wrap jobs worth of humility in your pocket, and still go quiet a beat too long at press junkets, the old 6 seconds never fully leaving your body. Growth doesn't erase the scar, it just teaches you what to do with it. You hire Devin as your producer on the next film, not charity, but because 2 years of watching him work for scraps taught you how good he is. He negotiates his own deal, line by line, and doesn't let you soften a number for old time's sake. And you respect him more for that than for anything he's said. You start a fund quietly, no gala, no name attached beyond a line in paperwork. Nobody reads grants for assistant directors, gaffers, and script supervisors. The Gus Alvarez's and Devin Ruiz's of every set. People who've spent decades making other people's names mean something without one photograph of their own. The application requires one thing of every applicant: no family connection to anyone financing their project. You put that question first, because you know, better than almost anyone, how much one honest question can change. Somewhere tonight, a studio kid stands in a hallway that's always belonged to him, reading a memo for the first time that says his movie isn't working. He doesn't know yet what that memo actually is. He assumes the name that got him the room will talk the room back into liking him. You know exactly what it really is, because you once stood in that same hallway reading that same kind of memo and mistaking it for the end of the world. It's the only honest thing that's ever happened to him. It will cost him every soft landing he's ever been handed, and it will not wait until he's ready, and it will not care whose name is on the door. And if he's lucky enough to fall the way you fell, somewhere on the other side of it, it's about to teach him everything his name never could.